Okay, hello everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going to look at data displays. It's kind of three data displays we're going to look at, okay? Guys, today's objective, we're going to use three types of data displays to describe data, and we're going to use Desmos to make them, okay? A dot plot, a box and whisker plot, and the histogram. Today's essential question, and you'll need this for the homework check. How should we display a given set of data? How should we display it? Again, you get out in the real world, you're going to get sets of data. And you want to describe the characteristics of that set. What is the data telling us? It's just a bunch of numbers, but you kind of search for patterns. What's going on? What's that number? What are those numbers telling us? And what we do, we use different methods to display the data in order to answer different questions about the characteristics of the data. It kind of depends. What do we want to know? All right, that will be a function then of which display we're going to use. Again, the three types we're covering today, the dot plot, the box and whisker plot, which we already looked at. We looked at that on Friday, and the histogram. Y'all, a dot plot, it looks like that. All right? It's a bunch of dots. Guys, a dot plot, it shows every value in the set of data. It shows the clusters, the gaps, and the outliers. It shows everything. All right? A dot plot, it shows every single data point. A box and whisker plot, we've talked about it. It looks like that. Okay, a box with kind of two whiskers on the side. Again, it displays the 5-number summary. And again, we talked about this, so I'm not going to go through it all. But guys, the exact value of the mean, the average, it cannot necessarily be determined by a box and whisker plot unless it's perfectly symmetric. So it's the same thing as the median, but all right, you can't really calculate the mean just looking at a box and whisker plot. Again, guys, it divides it into 4 equal quadrants. And by equal, I mean the same number of data points in each quadrant. Okay? Again, the box and whisker plot, it gives you 2 different measures of spread. It gives you the range, which is the minimum and the maximum minus the minimum, and that interquartile range where 50% of the data is inside that box. It's the third quadrant minus the first quadrant. And remember, the third quadrant is the middle of the top half, the upper half. And the Q1, the lower quadrant, is the middle of the lower half. All right, 50% of the data is inside that box. That's called the interquartile range, and we talked about that. The histogram, it looks like that. It's kind of like a bar chart, but there are no gaps in between these bars. No gaps unless there are 0 values in that interval. It's kind of like a mini ranges, little intervals. All right, a histogram does not show individual values. Okay, the data is organized into intervals. Buckets or bins, sometimes they call it, but intervals. So each bar of a histogram, it displays the frequency, the number of times that data occurred within that interval. Guys, histograms, again, do not display individual values within each interval. Therefore, you cannot determine the exact minimum or maximum from a histogram. It might not show it exactly what the max or min is. And you cannot determine the exact mean or median from a histogram. All right, not just from a bar chart like that, unless you go ahead and you can probably calculate, and it will take a while. All right. Guys, which data display should I use? It depends on what you want to know. All right, If you need to know an individual data point, in other words, how many times does the 7 occur, then use a dot plot because it shows every data point. If you want to divide the data into 4 equal quadrants, and you might want to identify the median, all right, or one of the quadrants, then use a box and whisker plot. Again, as an example, if you want to know 75% of the scores are greater than what value, all right, that divides it into 4 quadrants. If you want to know how many data values occur within some interval, all right, the key word for the histogram is interval. All right, as an example, how many trees are between 70 and 75 feet high? All right, you can go ahead and use a histogram as long as, you know, one of the intervals is 70 to 75. You count up here, well, there's 8 of them. All right, guys, that's it for the video here today. The classroom assignments today are right here. And these are the 5 vocabulary words for the warm-up, okay? All right, that's it. Thanks.